Hello, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy channel. We have been exploring the purpose of being alive, the meaning of life. What is our highest functioning that we can engage in as human beings? Is it reason and understanding? Is understanding what solves the problems that we have? Are we born into a family where we pick up false beliefs about ourselves and reality, from which we create an image of ourselves, a mask, an identity, and is our life nothing other than a playing out of the implications of carrying a false image of self and reality? If that's the cause of our problems, does that mean that all problems are in principle solvable? By using our understanding, sometimes called logos, our ability to reason and use words, along with our ability to reflect on what we're doing, ousia, that some animals can't do, to trace our problems back to the origin of this false model of self and reality through a system of questions designed to get to discover our problem that repeats, trace it back to the origin, and remove this false model that's the cause of all of our problems. Is that what we're here to do specifically? If so, can we ask another question? Why then was my soul in particular born in this particular period of time, in this particular family, with these particular parents, in this particular culture, influenced by these particular religions, such that I would always have walked away with this kind of false belief about myself? And I would have always lived a life playing out the kinds of choice of goals that this view of self and reality implies, and also blocks to reaching goals, meaningful goals, that again this false belief about self and reality implies. In other words, it is kind of inevitable. If so, why this particular false belief? In other words, can we conclude, again as a hypothesis, you won't know this until we verify it, but can we conclude that it seems rational or necessary that the purpose of our life is to address a false image or model of the self and reality that our soul must have been carrying prior to our birth, such that we chose this particular one that will always have given us this kind of a problem, and a life which would have, if we wake up to our purpose, given us the conditions to examine and experience the implications of that false belief, but also given us what we need to learn or remove that false belief of self and reality that we had been carrying that would have prevented our upward or positive development of our soul in higher dimensions of reality. In other words, what we can do here is learn, because we experience reality through time, meaning we can break down differences. It's not an all-at-oneness. We can experience differences, and we can experience that playing out in different dramas, relationships, fantasies, daydreams, and even night dreams. If so, can we say that the excellence of being a human being is waking up to our capacity for understanding, self-reflection, and mastering that skill? Like shooting three-pointers, it's a skill you can use and learn, and using that skill to benefit ourselves in particular or specifically by uncovering and solving the root of our problem. If there's a name for, now, as we've been reading, if that's the case, you won't be able to see that skill that we can use to benefit, so therefore we can upgrade the word skill to art, because an art for the Greeks has to benefit the subject. We won't be able to fulfill our purpose and master that art of understanding unless we have a name for it. Therefore, if you don't name it, you can't see it, you can't use it, you'll be blind to it, you'll be blocked. So the name for that art of understanding is the dialectic. Isn't that neat? The meaning of life and the art that we are specifically here to master to fulfill our highest functioning or purpose. But there's another question that comes to light. If we have the capacity as a soul to carry a false image of self and reality, that's the cause of our problems. That tells us that our soul, is seeking the truth of self and reality. We just have a pretender on the throne. Therefore, we have to learn that human problems or ignorance. Welcome, Squeaky Possum. Welcome. Human problems are caused by ignorance, which is nothing other than to think you know the truth about self and reality. I know what I am. Of course I do. I know what the world is. Of course I do. And all the implications. I know what I can and can't do. I know what's possible. I know the meaning of life, that kind of stuff. When you don't actually know those things, that's belief. Well, that's ignorance. That's ignorance. To think you know something you don't. And the reason we think it is because we are imitating an early teacher from when we were a wee small kid. That's belief. To believe someone else based on imitation, based on physical appearances. What that does always is limit or block your capacity to think for yourself. You have to believe someone else, you can't think for yourself. And if you develop your own understanding and understand something for yourself, you don't have to believe someone else. And if understanding can also prepare you to experience the ultimate, we call that knowledge, know the nature of self or reality directly, then why would you believe someone else? Yeah, epistemology is what we're talking about. Epistemology is a fancy word for what cognitive functions can we apprehend the world through. We have belief, which is, of course, ignorance, to take a false model of self and reality because we were too young to ask questions in a situation where it was too dangerous to ask questions. So we take the image of knowing, that's belief. Believe someone else. And as we were just saying, that cognitive function has to squash your own development. In other words, let's take an example of belief. Jesus. You can't grow out of that belief of Jesus. You get it when you're 4 years old and you can't change. There's no growth, there's no development. You can't ask questions because that's the devil. You can't change or grow. You can't go beyond what you're told is the limit because that's heresy. So, belief necessarily is in opposition to self-reflection, understanding, and those are the two things that we utilize with our higher epistemological or cognitive functioning understanding. Yeah, that's what epistemology means. And if you want to be fancy, you can recognize that epistemology comes along with its partner, ontology. Ontology is from the word ontos, which means what exists. Epistemology is how you can apprehend it. So you can apprehend physical appearances through beliefs, but our question is, how do we fulfill our purpose? If our purpose is to master the art of understanding, the dialectic, and all human problems are to be carrying a false belief based on an image, based on a family clan identity about self and reality, first of all, we have to name that skill or art we're here to master, the dialectic. We have to recognize for ourselves that at the root cause of all of our repeating cycles of problems is a false belief about self and reality. And our question is, well, how do we do that? If all human problems are based on something not called evil, but ignorance. So evil is a different way of explaining human problems. You're just bad, which is, again, a belief. Justifying violence because you can't understand away a problem from the devil. So if all human problems are caused by belief that we get from childhood, individually and collectively, the projection or universalization of those personal beliefs by saying it's not just what I think, it's God that thinks it. Religion is, the word religious means to be bound. It's to be bound by a saving belief. Or politics. It's not what I believe about the white man being in charge, it's the law. So collectively, all problems is the universalization of our own personal beliefs. So if that's the cause of human problems, belief, and belief functions in conflict with the whole, in-group, out-group, we are the chosen people, we are the Smiths, we are the Jews, we are the Christians, we are the MAGA, and we want to hurt everyone else because we're afraid of what's different, then all problems are in principle understandable and in a very, very simple way. Yeah, this is what the word belief means. We're defining the word belief for our friend in chat. Therefore, how do we overcome the root of all human problems? Belief. Understanding. If you understand something, you don't have to believe someone else. It's just that simple. That's why grifters always target religious people or the right wing. So at the time of recording, there is a Twitter or X or whatever it is, just released a feature where all of the Twitter accounts show where their account is based. And it turned out all of the right-wing accounts, all of the MAGA based, are all based overseas. In other words, everyone recognizes that in order to manipulate people to act against their own interests, you need to circumvent understanding and manipulate their beliefs. That's why Trump targets the Christians. Netanyahu, to do his injustice, targets the Jews. That's why all of these online Twitter grifters targeted the right wing. It's easy to say, oh, that's because they're stupid and gullible. What we want to understand is why that's the case. It's the cognitive function of belief that's in opposition to truth, evidence, reason. For identity, an image of self we identify with. I am a Jew, I am a Christian, I am a Joneses, I am a MAGA, I am a Nazi, I am a whatever. To identify with a belief, that's not understanding, that's belief. And that's why these foreign people make these accounts to target specifically people who are operating through the cognitive function of belief. Why not name the thing you are defining with a word that doesn't have a ton of... because we are defining it. We are defining it. That's what it means to be a belief. That's what belief is. So, all human problems come from belief. But as our friend is saying, hey, let's say I want to understand that. How do I understand, nail down in definition, what exactly belief is? Well, to do that, you have to use understanding. So once again, our job is to perfect or master understanding, which is required to remove problems or belief. So our question is, how do we do that? If our highest cognitive function in time is understanding, how do we perfect our understanding? Slow down, chatter. You have to be able to follow steps of reasoning. That's how we think. This is the dialectic. So instead of using insults, if you are not following the line of reasoning, then you can speak up and say, "Oh, I missed that. Can you repeat that?" But instead of insulting people, just make clear what you're not seeing, and we can review it and make sure we're on the same page. If you're coming along, in other words, if you are a genuine person. So how do we do that? How do we make sure our definition of belief is the accurate one? Because some other one can say, oh, just believe me, that belief is actually good, actually. Doing what you're told because I said so, because I speak for God, or because I'm your parent is good, actually. And you need it because you suck. You can't think for yourself. You can't know the nature of reality. How do we understand it? That's our question. Well, how do we understand anything? Well, how do we perfect anything, any skill? We perfect it by ousia, self-reflection on the model that the activity is based on. So while our activity in that state of ignorance, when we haven't picked up the game of understanding, is you're always reflecting on your false model of self and reality belief, and all of your activity will be a self-fulfilling prophecy justifying your false model that you don't even know you're carrying, keeping you stuck in your repeating cycles of problems. We want to do the same thing, but actually on the correct model. What's the correct model of understanding? In other words, the activity of understanding through which understanding gains its perfection, or the meaning of life, is to use understanding to reflect on the model of understanding that understanding uses. And it's through that reflection on the model you gain the skill and mastery over it, or in other words, you gain its perfection. Just as the more you reflect on Tony Hawk, the better, and the more you become like Tony Hawk through that reflection, the better the skateboarder you become. That kind of thing, reflecting on the model. The more the painter reflects on the model that he is making a copy of, the closer his copy or his activity will reflect the excellence of that model. So to reflect on understanding. Okay, so what does understanding use? What are the building blocks of understanding that have to exist somewhere to be used as a model? That we all use. We all recognize understanding. But how many people have asked the question, what is it? I mean, yeah, sure, we can recognize that beliefs are the cause of human problems and conflict and bloodshed and genocide, racist beliefs, sexist beliefs, religious beliefs, political beliefs, all that, yeah, beliefs. Sure. And we recognize that when we go to school, no one ever has a class on belief unless it's a religious, brainwashing school or something like that. You go specifically to learn to understand how to fly a plane, to understand how to fix a car, to understand how to do medicine. Yeah, okay, we all recognize that. But how many people have asked the question, what is understanding? This thing that makes you a better surgeon, a better pilot, a better person, if you understand the self and reality. What is that? If that's what we're here to do. If all ignorance is a blind loyalty to belief and all excellence comes from the development of understanding, well, what's understanding? That's what we've been exploring. Okay, so if we were to reflect on understanding using the text that we've been reading, written by someone with the art of understanding themselves, Socrates, we have come to realize that everything we understand uses certain Lego pieces or building blocks. Everything that you understand, you see as parts, and you understand them by bringing it into a whole, then you put a name on it. In other words, you bring it into a oneness, using part and whole. Everything that you understand, you recognize, hey, this chicken is the same as other birds in that they're birds, but it's a different thing to be a chicken because it's yellow. Same in difference. It is like this bird in that it can fly a little bit, but unlike it in that it in that it eats grain. Like and unlike. So we can see that there is a series of pairs that bring things into a oneness that we use for understanding. But also understanding uses So pairs or duads is a fancy word for duads, but yes, that's what we're doing, categorizing, well said. Right, so the act of understanding is categorizing or finding all of the parts within the system and categorizing it so you can see them hierarchically arranged within a whole. That's what understanding is, well said. But also we have a bunch of monad or one terms that don't come along with a pair. In other words, to be a part means a part of a whole. And whole means you're a whole of a puzzle when you're not missing any of your parts. So each of those pairs are defined together. Whereas beauty isn't defined by its opposite, justice isn't defined by its opposite. So here is what we seek for our goodness. So we understand with our reasoning capacity by bringing it together into a oneness, but we use our understanding to seek our goodness. And so we can have a list of terms or monads or one words to define goodness, excellence, justice, beauty, benefit. And this is what we use all the time, not just for understanding, but for everything we do. For us to reach out to this chicken, we won't be able to do it unless we can identify it's one chicken. Identify the whole of the chicken. Separate its parts from this guy's parts, the flamingo's parts. But we won't reach out for the chicken unless we've decided it's good to do so. So every single action, every activity uses these terms, as does all understanding. But actually, for this chicken to exist, it has to be a whole of parts. It has to be the same as something in that it's a thing, but different in that it's a different thing. So these are all the categories or the building blocks of not just understanding, but activity and perception and existence. Everything you perceive, you could do the same. You won't perceive it unless you have a word for it. If it's camouflage, if you can't see the whole, you won't see it. Perception. So we've got a list of terms, duads, that you use for understanding. And by the way, what are we doing? We're using our understanding to revert on the model of understanding so we can perfect our understanding. Because if we perfect our understanding, we can master the art of understanding, or the dialectic, which can be used to revert on the false model of understanding or reality, because it's not just the model of understanding, it's the model of perception and existence. So we can use the tools of understanding, how to systematically move part by part, distinguishing same or differences, to see whether something's beautiful and just or actually unjust and the cause of our problems. To purify the cause of our ignorance and problems, belief. That's one activity of the dialectic, purification of what's false, solving human problems. And the second is to perfect the excellence, purification and perfection. Removal of what's false, perfection of the truth. Removal of the lesser, excellence of the greater. Hang on a second. One more set of terms, lesser and greater. Copy, model. Harmful beliefs, beneficial understanding. False and truth. All of those things fit in a copy, model, in a greater and lesser relationship. So now we've got one more set of terms. The axioms, yes, axioms, well said. The axioms of thought, perception, and in this particular case, what we're interested in understanding. What are the fundamental axioms or preconditions or principles needed for our activity of understanding? So we've got a list of duads, whole, part, same, different. We've got a list of monads that refer to goodness, while the duads refer to oneness. But now we have something that we have to use to make sure. Got some spam.
I'm a robot. You don't talk to me, you robot. Shut up.
Shut up, robot. There's a spammer in the chat. Cheap views, apparently.
And this is spam.
Some spam.
This is an AI guy.
It's AI guy. And to them we say,
Vapid cunt.
oh, Jesus.
Bitch.
So we've got those duads that bring together things into a oneness. We have the monads, that is what we use it for, what we seek. But also, as we reach out to seek our goodness and understand it and bring it to ourselves, we want to distinguish the lesser from the greater. We don't want to be conned. We don't want to be grifted to. We don't want an AI version of it. We want the real thing. We want the model, not the copy. We want the truth, not the false. We want the greater, not the lesser. So what we are doing right now is building for ourselves the model of understanding. And now we have to ask a question, how does language fit into that too? Let's finish this first. So, hang on a second. For there to be a model and copy, or greater and lesser, there has to be some principle such that there is a greater representation of the truth, of what's true, and a lesser. For there to be a model and copy, there has to be the axioms or principles for that. So now we actually have a triad: lesser, greater, ultimate. So now, using our understanding to perfect our understanding, that we can then use to purify our problems or solve human problems, but also gain the excellence of what we can do here as an evolved human being, someone evolved into language and self-reflection, logos and ousia. It's therefore the meaning of life. What are we doing right now? Participating in the purpose of being a human, the meaning of life. We've got the duads that bring things together with oneness. And we can even identify, while we are a whole soul, we can identify the force or the principle of our soul that seeks to reason and understand. But we use that because we desire our goodness. We have a set of monads, excellence, beauty, justice, that compels us. And as we reach out for our goodness with understanding, we want to distinguish the lesser from the greater, but then even the ultimate. So there's our triad. The duads refer to onenesses, our monads, goodnesses, and our triad, lesser, greater, ultimate, is how we distinguish truth. The truth is the greater, the false or the distortion, the lesser, but the principle has to pre-exist true. So what have we done? We've looked at everything that we have been using through understanding as an adjective or descriptor: a whole, a part, beauty, excellence. These are all adjectives. They're used to describe physical things or describe things that we perceive and apply our understanding to. They're all adjectives, descriptors. Which means they have to have an existence in a higher ontology, a higher dimension of reality that doesn't change as the physical world changes. It would be weird if this chicken fell apart and was no longer a whole. It would be weird if the idea of whole suddenly changed. So we call that realm the realm of mind or being, because it's always being itself. Necessarily, for it to have scope or causal effect over our physical world, which is always in change, so we call that becoming. So there's our ontology. There's a physical world of change that we see through our physical senses. And if we accidentally, or if we make the mistake of deriving the model from our physical appearances, the appearance usually of our parental figures, they appear to know everything. We have the cause of human problems, belief. Notice MAGA or the right wing say, hey, just believe the leader. Don't think for yourself. That's why all those scammers target the MAGA people on Twitter. Religion, just believe me. I'm wearing the funny hat. I know what God says. and all of the countless scandals and abuse and genocide and war and slavery and subjugation of women, all these hierarchical structures that put me as the best boy on top, is all belief. Or to mistake physical appearances for the model. But what we are doing is realizing all physical appearances see as adjectives the model. In other words, you never see beauty itself walking down the street. You might see a beautiful thing that you're attracted to. Same thing for justice. You recognize a justice, or when the referee makes a bad call. So that's an injustice. We want justice. We seek justice. But you never see justice walking down a street with a hat on. So all of the physical world of appearances and becoming use these terms as adjectives, but our job or purpose or meaning of life is to perfect our own capacity for independent thought, not believing someone else and being a slave or being a murderer because Abraham killed his son, so too I must kill the non-Christians or whatever. So Abraham, of course, is the root analogy behind the Abrahamic religions. As Abraham was instructed to kill out of belief, so too must the Christians kill the whatever, must the Jews kill the Palestinians, must the Muslims kill, etc., etc., etc. The Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, big ones. So what's that? A model derived from physical appearances, but what's the truth? The truth? Oh, truth, that's the greater. What's the lesser? The false. So how do we go from the false to the truth? Or the copy to the model of understanding, where you perfect your understanding and you perfect your capacity to be just and beautiful as a human being. You become a good person. You can function in a good way. You have to move from adjectives that you don't see with your physical senses, but you infer their existence, to the nouns. That's what we're doing, going from a descriptor to a substantive. Not a beautiful thing, that beautiful person, that beautiful streamer, but what is beauty itself. Not a whole chicken or a whole flamingo, but what is whole itself? What is it as a noun? So all of those terms in our set of pairs to bring things into a oneness. A set of monads that brings things that we seek for our goodness. And that triad, lesser, greater, ultimate, that we apply to those things to make sure we have the real version, not the lesser version of those monads, not lesser beauty, not fake beauty, not a fake model of justice based on belief, but the greater or the truth of beauty, the truth of justice. All of those words in our lists we see as adjectives, but the use of understanding that we are here to do is to reflect on not the physical world, but mind itself, where we can understand and even directly experience them as nouns. So not only are we learning how the categories of understanding, so we could, as the text we've been reading does, you can organize your conversation. Socrates says with Jesus, whole and part first. By the way, if we were to talk Jesus, you and me, Socrates and Jesus, we'd have to have someone to talk for. If someone were to speak for us, let's say they wrote a book, wink, they'd have to be able to account for the whole of our lives and teaching, but also understand the parts, right? And they'd have to be able to account for how we are the same. And then they have a conversation about how they were the same, but how are they different? So it can, using the model of understanding, you can guide your reflection. Now, that also means you can guide your reflection to uncover the root cause of your individual problems. So that's called the dialectic. The dialectic used to remove the lesser or the false or the imitation belief is called philosophical midwifery. The dialectic, the art or skill of understanding we are perfecting right now, used to apprehend the greater or the truth of reality, is called, real philosophy. let's call it Platonic philosophy or Socratic philosophy, but that's not a good word because it assumes that it's one person's opinions. It's just real philosophy. And we've gained that excellence, that's the meaning of life, that allows us to purify problems and perfect our excellence by simply turning about upon the model of understanding, which is nothing other than moving from adjectives to nouns. But here's the rub. If the purpose and what's needed to A, solve problems, and B, reach your highest state of being, because by the way, this use of understanding to revert upon the model of understanding, which is a noun in the realm of being, is formally meditation. Sustained, focused attention with open, curious attention, ideally with a question, but it's even better than all other meditations or yogas because we also are using our understanding. Normally that's the one they leave out. So that kind of activity on something that exists in the realm of being is formally meditation. So it's also the model of not just understanding or learning, it's the model of meditation, it's the model of spirituality. So by this use of understanding to reflect on the model of understanding, we're also preparing our minds to directly experience the realm of being. That state or epistemology for our friend in chat is called nous or knowing, to know what's real, to know reality, which is mind ousia-ing, turning about upon itself to know itself as the model of reality and the model of understanding. Experience of the truth of reality, the spiritual experience. We call it spiritual because it's not physical. So you're kind of separating yourself from the body in that jump to that different dimension or cognitive faculty. Pretty neat. So here's the question. What happens if this whole process, if the meaning of life and what we need to solve problems and gain our excellence and know the truth of reality is to move from adjectives, a beautiful thing, that beautiful thing, to substantive, the beautiful itself? What happens if you don't have the word the? Some languages don't have the word the. They can only ever, therefore, use their ousia reflection and use their language, logos, to think about a particular shapes and colors. That apple, that wise person, that priest or rabbi or imam claiming to know. What happens? You're castrated. Languages that don't have the word the are castrated from their own excellence and are stuck in problems. Because if you can only see physical things, you can only derive models of belief. You can be a fervent Nazi, or a fervent Christian, or a fervent Jew, or a fervent MAGA, or a fervent sexist or racist. All about shapes and colors because you can only, that's what you see, it's what you perceive with your physical senses because you don't have the word the in your language. What a disaster. So, if the meaning of life is to move from adjectives to substantives to perfect our highest functioning understanding, and understanding of this kind, dialectic, is required to put an end to human suffering because it's required to solve problems and it's also required to reach your excellence. So if it's needed for purification and perfection, then you can't do it if you have a language without the word the. Therefore, it seems that you could trace the root cause, hello, welcome chatter, the root cause of all human problems and suffering, and as well as the root cause of our lack of development, growth, or enlightenment, down to the presence or absence of one goddamn word.
Wow! Cool as a cute.
Cool as a cute. One word. The. Hey, welcome for the follow. Hooray. Welcome. Thank you for the follow. The. By the way, if we were to represent, so let's look at a description of everything we've brought together in this reflection today. We have two possible realms. Well, welcome. I'm glad you stopped by. I hope you find something curious to wonder about, something that relates to you personally, that you can get your hooks into real philosophy. Support small streamers. Well, this is the best. You've got the best streamer out there. Some are saying
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
Cutie pie. So, human problems are nothing other than ignorance, which is what? By only looking through our physical appearance, we derive a false model about self and reality, an image of yourself, your ego, and what you think the world is. And all of your life, you're stuck in a zombie-like state, an NPC, repeating the same problems because you're stuck in the same image of yourself and the same belief about reality. And as we said, belief. Oh, great. You're in the right place. What we're doing here is learning how to do philosophy for ourselves. Real philosophy is very different than how we're taught philosophy is, by the way. So we're very lucky to have stumbled upon this stream. Good for you. So, belief always is in opposition to your own benefit. If you went out and did your own thing, you wouldn't be a believer. You're not a follower anymore. Now we can say, well, there's an evolutionary purpose. Before we had language and before we had evolved out of our animal state, where we can actually use our mind to reflect on our mind, self-reflection, ousia. So before we had logos, language, and ousia, self-reflection, to be afraid of everything outside of the cave and to be a fierce caveman, fiercely loyal to my tribe good, other tribe bad, inside cave good, outside cave bad and scary. That might have allowed those humans to never leave the cave and not get eaten by saber-toothed tigers. So while it was a kind of solution to evolution, or an evolutionary problem, it no longer applies because we have evolved into ousia, reflection, and logos, language. But its remnants have to be addressed. That's our purpose as a species. To identify all of these clan, tribe beliefs, because they all function in opposition of your own development. Never go outside the cave. Always agree with your leader. Every fascist, every religious authority manipulates people's beliefs. Trump can do no wrong. I believe everything he says is right because he's the leader. My mummy and daddy know everything. I'll never be different because they're the leader. My priest or my minister or my rabbi or my imam, he knows everything because he's the leader. See how stupid it is? It keeps you stuck in your beliefs. And so, therefore, negative influence, yes. Yes. Belief is based on physical appearances. Look how beautiful mummy looked when she said that thing. Look how wise that preacher looks when he claims to know everything and wants my money. So we think, oh, that's real. That's reality. And by the way, they're treating me like a slave. I must be shit. I must be a small bean or a bad noodle. So that's where we take the blame for these lies based on appearances and belief. That's where we get our negative self-talk, all of your negative criticism of yourself, the negative image of yourself, and it's that negative self-talk based on that negative image of yourself that blocks you from your own goals. I can't talk to that girl. I'm not good enough. I can't be wise. I'm not good enough. I can't go out on my own. I'm not good enough. Yes, a negative kind of judging, because judging, when you judge something, you use a model. Is that a good football player? You must have a model of what a good football player is. Lionel Messi. Is that a good skateboard trick? You must have a model of what makes a good skateboard trick. So, human problems, which keeps us in a zombie-like state, stuck in the same repeating script, always having the same blocks, always talking to yourself negatively, is a kind of judgment based on a false model or activity based on a model called belief that we get when we're little from our parents. That's the cause of all human problems. Ignorance, which is an activity of thinking based on a false model called belief. Now, here's the thing with belief. You don't just have to stomach or swallow the pill of that particular belief. Mormons are the best, Jews are the chosen people, you suck, or you have to be a slave, or you can't do whatever. You don't just get that crappy belief. You also have to swallow a second pill, which is that my own understanding is garbage. Because I would never have thought this about myself. I would never have thought this about reality. There must be something wrong with me. And if anyone is insisting, hey, just believe me, bro, they are scamming you. We say to those people,
you have severe mental illness and you need to be fucking checked into an insane asylum.
You need to be in an insane asylum. Imagine trying to learn how to fix a car engine and you asked, hey, why does the spark plug go there? And your teacher said, oh, just believe me. You go, what the fuck? No. How can I become a mechanic? If I have to just believe you because I can't understand it for myself, I'll be your fucking slave. Every time a car comes in, I'll have to call you on the phone. Can you please tell me where to... Keeps you as an infant, as a slave. To that we say...
Fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
Fucking bitch. They're always scamming you. Anyone who says belief, they're always scamming you. Because they want you to be a slave to them as an authority figure. It's a hack. If you say, can you explain something? And they say, oh no, just believe me, bro. Red flags. Wow, wow, wow. Exactly, you're not learning. So every belief is not only neutral, so people who say, religion's fine. No, it's not fine. It's not neutral. You also, not just do you have to get these terrible beliefs about the world and yourself that are garbage, you also have to stomach the second pill that understanding is bad. That you can't know for yourself the nature of reality. And you're less than God. And it might turn out that you're not less than God. At all. So that's all human problems. Human problems is the activity of thinking that's based on a false model that we don't even know we have, called belief. Our job, therefore, is to perfect our own thinking or activity by reflecting on the actual model of understanding. And that's what we've been doing today. The actual model of reality, mind. Mind. So whenever you think about something, you always say, hey, that's a whole. That's a whole chicken. And I know it's a whole because it's all its parts are there, whole and part. It's the same as this flamingo in that they're both stuffies, but it's different in that it's yellow. Same and different. By the way, when you think, so you get a whole list of pairs of terms that are the Lego pieces. Yes, mind. So this is why it's mind. So all of these are Lego pieces, whole, part, same and different, that are pairs or duads. But also we seek the most beautiful stuffy. We want a just referee or a just society. We want our excellence. So now we have a list of ones or monads that are the Lego pieces for understanding. But there's one more thing. You don't want a fake beautiful person. You want the real thing, lesser, greater. You don't want the copy, you want the model. You don't want the false, you want the truth. But for there to be a model and copy, you need a triad of terms. ultimate, the greater, the lesser. The lesser, the false, the appearances, your belief, the lesser, the imitation. The greater is the actual model, and of course, there has to be some cause of that. That's the ultimate. But all of these terms that make up the building blocks of understanding, we're looking at them as nouns. You only experience them as adjectives. A beautiful person, a just referee, a excellent football player. Exactly. You experience them as adjectives when your mind makes contact with physical appearances. Descriptors. But what we want to know is, hang on a second, for there to be a physical world of appearances, and if you stuck there, you just stuck in belief and ignorance and problems. But there is this set of terms that have scope, that influence everything. Hey, if one whole chicken becomes a part, wholeness is still the same. In other words, it doesn't change. Whole and part will always be the same, even if physical parts become wholes or physical wholes become parts. Beauty will always be beauty, even if your beautiful girlfriend dumps you and is ugly now. I don't know. So what are we doing? We're recognizing that for there to be these adjectives, they have to have their own self-existence in the model. That's the realm of being. It doesn't, hey, welcome, Isadori. It doesn't change, so it's eternal. That's the realm of being. We can use our thinking or understanding to ask questions and think about it, to contemplate it. That's meditation. On 2512, is that okay? I really like this. I'm learning a lot. Sure. Yeah. This is what you're here for. Literally. You're very lucky. Very few people have a life where they come across an actual philosopher. You won't find anyone talking like this in school, because school is all about beliefs. Hegel's belief, Kant's belief, Nietzsche's belief. And it's all about debate. Debate is, how do you use your language to win an argument and prove your beliefs were right all along? In other words, you don't learn. You're still a zombie. You're still an NPC. You're still repeating the same belief and same false model about mind. 25 to 12 equals... Oh, okay, sure. So you're very lucky to come across someone who's doing real philosophy. No, you don't learn this at university. No. That's why we read the book that we read here. The guy who wrote this book is a doctor of philosophy. He's also a Buddhist mystic. Like, he was given the title of Buddha. But he's the only, like, since Socrates, he's the only true philosopher. And luckily he wrote a book. He passed away a couple of years ago. But all of this we've got from reading. Now, reading without projecting our own personal beliefs. At school they say, what does this book mean to you? Like, can you stuff your own dumb beliefs into this book? And you say, and you write an essay for your English teacher. To me, Harry Potter was about how Jesus loves me. No. That's how we're taught to read. We're learning how to read without letting our beliefs influence us. As a result, we're about 90 episodes in, and you can find the old episodes on YouTube. We've developed questions about the meaning of life, about the nature of human problems. So this is a kind of summary of what we've come to. All human problems is caused by ignorance. All human problems is solved by wisdom. What's wisdom? Wisdom is the use of understanding to reflect on the model that exists eternally in the realm of being, because it's the noun or the thing that becomes the cause of the adjectives. Beautiful, that beautiful thing, that just thing, that whole chicken, that same stuffy. In other words, we don't see sameness walking down the street. We don't see beauty itself in the physical world. What's really fascinating is, hey, we are using our understanding to know the model of understanding so we can get the map, sometimes called the paradigm, so we can structure our own understanding well. So we can systematically reflect on what we want to know about. That's called the dialectic. How do we use these terms in an order? The dialectic. There are 4 parts to the dialectic. How do we use these terms to, hey, you want to know what beauty is? Make sure you're reading a text written by Socrates or Pierre Grimes, 2 people who have experienced, or Parmenides or Diotima. There are some people who have experienced the realm of beauty itself, and some of them have written books, what we're reading, and they're fun, they're the best books. Using the text itself, so you're not bringing in your own beliefs, can you define beauty itself in relation to itself using all of those terms? Whole, part, same, different. Here's another pair, say self and other. Everything that you think, the very first understanding judgment you make is, that's not myself, that's other than me, that's a chicken. So if I'm hungry, I'm not going to feed my stuffy because that's not myself, that's other. If I've got an itch, I scratch this because that's myself and I don't scratch the stuffy. Self and other. But what is truly beauty, since we all have our own? Exactly. Opinions are based on physical perceptions. That's why we need to read this book we're reading here, or any of the books written by Plato, translated by Juan Balboa, the only translation that's worth a damn. Because Socrates, or the author of this book, Pierre Grimes, has experienced the realm of mind where you see beauty as a noun. It's the same for everyone. It's beauty itself. We might have opinions or beliefs if we've only seen physical adjectives, beauty, a beautiful puppy, a beautiful painting. That's why people will go to war and kill people based on their different opinions. Well, I believe it's beautiful for women to be subjugated. I think it's beautiful that I have slaves. It's my opinion that beauty is actually when you enslave a woman. And I'm going, and that's what my preacher told me, that's what my family has done, and I will kill anyone who's different. Because opinions are wrong. It's just an opinion. It's nothing to do with truth. It's to do with your upbringing and your beliefs and your perceptions. But you know what you can do? Solve problems caused by opinions through understanding, because understanding's always true. It's the truth. We want to be able to understand beauty itself. So when you do a dialectic, you do both. You say, okay, what happens if beauty is or exists in the realm of being as an objective, knowable thing, as a noun? And what happens if it doesn't? Yeah, opinions comes from your physical senses and your beliefs, usually from your parents, but also your culture and your religion that surrounds your family way of being. So what happens if beauty exists as a noun? Well, first of all, you have to be reading, again, either Plato, who describes conversations had by Socrates, but only the Balboa translation. Because that's the only real one. or anything by Pierre Grimes, like the books that we read here. Just as if you want to learn how to fix a car, you got to read a book written by a mechanic. If you want to learn how to be a doctor, you have to read a medical textbook. But then, okay, so we're interested in beauty. What if it is, or exists in the realm of being? Universal, true, not a matter of opinion, not a matter of belief, but a noun that is the building block of understanding, but also as we perfect our understanding, that's also a kind of meditation. So if you're able to do the dialectic and focus on beauty in this way, you potentially can separate your soul from your body and experience the realm of being. So it's the spiritual experience, the brilliant light of being. But you also have to say, what if it's not? What if it does not exist? And it only is in the world of becoming. It's only an adjective. Adjective only. We use those primary terms of understanding. We've got whole, part, same, different, but the first one, self and other. The two primary building blocks of thought, perception, reality, and understanding. Talk about beauty itself in relation to itself. Give a definition of it. Again, from the text. Not your own opinion. About if it exists in being. Now use that other term, self and other. Self to other. How does it function? To another? Demonstration. So how does beauty function to another? You can pick your own one. How does beauty function in relation to justice? Or how about this? How does beauty relate to you as a philosopher? Someone who seeks to know beauty and perfect their own functioning in the physical world, understanding by reverting upon that model, understanding that model, and even experiencing the model. The model of beauty being in being, so it's the truth of reality. It's also non-physical, so it's the spiritual enlightenment experience. That's what you want as a philosopher. How does beauty affect you? How does it demonstrate? Now, after you've been affected by beauty that exists in being, how do you then, as that other, relate to other others? Division. How do you relate to your girlfriend now that you know the model of beauty? How do you relate to your friends with problems now that you know the model of how to understand beauty and how to differentiate beauty from their false beliefs about beauty? I believe my mummy and daddy because they look how beautiful they are. It's like how they say on an airplane, you must put your own mask on before helping others. Exactly. The greater you can perfect your own understanding, the greater you can relate to yourself. Every time you put yourself down, I'm not beautiful. Who told you that? Oh, gee, I must have a false model of myself. I wonder who that voice sounds like. So you can purify your false model of beauty, of reality, of being, of self. But also, you can prepare yourself for the experience of the real thing, which is experienced as bliss. Some people call it enlightenment. The Taoists think it's the highest enlightenment. So, given your reading of the text, which is fun anyway, and with the coolest people on Twitch,
I don't know.
You
get a bunch of views.
That's why we get a bunch of views. So talk about beauty. What if it exists? What would you say about it? You'd say, well, it's part of being. It's experienced as bliss. Sometimes it's called divine luminosity. It's what it is itself. But how does it function? How does it relate to you? It's that our love of beauty that makes us into philosophers. Because while we're attracted to beautiful things, beautiful people, beautiful paintings, beautiful whatever, ultimately we seek beauty itself. So how does it function self to others? It inspires us to know the truth of reality. It motivates our soul. But hey, after you've been affected, how do you, as that other, relate to other others' division? What does that mean? If you in your relationships, most other people try and make their partner like their opinion of beauty. They try and make their partner like their mummy or their daddy. Beauty bias, exactly. All human conflicts and relationships come down to trying to make the other person like your parent, like your belief of beauty, like your appearance of beauty that you grew up with for 18 years in the house. Especially when you're really young and you're dependent on those people. But now that you have that, now that you have the true model of beauty, can both of you seek that same thing and your relationship be about experiencing beauty with this kind of understanding, love and logos? So until you both directly experience the truth of reality together? How do you relate to your friends? You've got a problem? I know what a problem is. You have not reflected on your false model of reality or beauty. So you're seeking this false model of beauty, which is actually sick. Because I'm learning to understand beauty and how to ask questions about what it is and what it isn't, I can help you overcome your problems. Division. And then finally, both you and your friends, all those others, you can synthesize into a single idea. So your relationships, your chats with friends over coffee, how does beauty affect how you do art? Now you have the model of beauty. Does your art become like it? So all of these divisions, you get one idea from that to synthesize the harmony. Exactly. Why does beauty matter so much though? Exactly. People who think it's just physical looks. Well, hang on, we'll get to physical looks now. You synthesize from all of those divisions a single idea, that synthesis, and now you take that single idea back to the self. That's called analysis. And that's the conclusion stage. So, you get all these ideas about beauty, it exists, it's bliss, it's what our soul seeks from the text. You talk about what it is, if it exists itself. Definition. How does it function? Self to others. Notice, self to self, you've defined the subject, the self, the subject. And that newly defined subject rolls over. See how there's a flow to your questions? You start by defining the idea. Now you've got this definition. Now this self is now the defined self. Now you can talk about how it functions to you. Now you've got you with being affected. Now you roll over to the next level. How do you relate to other others in division? How do you relate to your friends and stuff? And you take all of these together and say, hey, in all of those divisions, can we synthesize that and make this another other that we can then, does a blind person care about beauty? Exactly. Beauty might be on the inside. The beauty of the mind, the beauty of a soul, the beauty of learning. Good point. How do you then relate back to the idea of beauty? So now what you've got is a full systematic reflection and understanding of beauty itself. That's not enough. What if it doesn't exist? What if it's just a physical appearance? You have to do the same for that. So what if beauty doesn't exist? You would say, define it. Oh, it's just an illusion. It's just appearance. It's just an opinion. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. These are all how you would define it if it doesn't. Yes. It's just about physical looks. But with the dialectic, you want to get both, so you can understand the truth and recognize what kind of a universe you would be in if it didn't exist. Just an opinion. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Then how does that function? How does beauty that's just an appearance function? It's just to trick you to having sex with the hottest member of the species because of evolution. Just a trick to get you to buy more Coca-Cola. It's just a scam. Having been scammed, how do you then relate to other people? Become a marketing executive, trick people into buying my product, get them to act against their own interests so I can make profit. That's all. And then having been affected by that, how do you relate then to beauty? Well, then I say, well, beauty is stupid. Beauty is pointless. Beauty doesn't matter. Beauty isn't worth seeking. Beauty isn't real. So all that would follow in the side of the dialectic if beauty doesn't exist. All that is the 4 possible categories of using that pair, self and others. And the more we reflect on these key terms that we have got, the nouns, whole and part, we could talk about beauty as a whole. And how does beauty relate to its parts? Harmony, a friend in chat said. A harmony of parts into a whole. That's beauty itself. How is beauty the same as things that exist? And how is it different? Well, it's the same as justice in that it exists in the realm of being, but it's different because they're different aspects of being or mind. If we don't have beauty, then our entire perception of life changes. Exactly. So that's the thing. After you've done this dialectic, and you can do a dialectic on any of these things, what's whole itself? Not as an adjective, but in being. What's beauty itself? We just did. What's justice itself? What's excellence itself? What's motion itself? What's rest itself? So all of these building blocks of understanding, these set of pairs, that what we understand into bring into a oneness, these set of goods into a goodness, and this triad, lesser, greater, ultimate, copy, model, principle. You could do a dialectic on all of them. That's metaphysics. That's philosophy. Using these terms to define these terms. Using understanding to define the model of understanding. And by the way, because this is true, you can go through this dialectic again and again. You can have these dialectical reflections with your friends to surface the false model of beauty, of justice, of reality, because all of those things exist in mind. They're all the nouns, beauty itself, justice itself. And your dialectic covers what if it does exist in being. That's a reflection on what happens itself to others, others to others, and other back to self. If it exists, but you also did a dialectic, what if it doesn't? What if it's just a belief? What if it's just an appearance? So the use of the dialectic is the skill of understanding that you apply to the model of understanding. So it's the whole of understanding, the model, but also it's the parts you use in the dialectic. So it's the whole and the parts to define and understand and know, because it's also meditation. It can open your consciousness, open your sixth sense, and you can experience it directly. It's the use of thinking on the model of thinking, using that model of thinking, so it's self-reflective. The more that you do these dialectics, the greater your thinking is. The greater your thinking is, the more you can do these dialectics. The more you do these dialectics, the more you're understanding and even knowing the model, the greater your activity is. That's why you're not stuck in your problems. That's why you're not a zombie. That's why you're not an NPC, you're the main character. Because every time you do a dialectic, you improve. So now you've gone through this dialectic on beauty. You've defined it itself. How does it function to others? How do those others function to other others? And then how do you unify that into a single idea? The conclusion is other back to self. You bring this idea back to your first definition. Now you've got an improved definition. Because you've gone through learning the meaning of life, the reason we're here, you've perfected your understanding. You go back to the original definition you got from the text, but now you see it even deeper, which means you've got a new definition, which means you can do a new dialectic. It's a loop. It's a improving development loop based on self-reflection, the capacity, the highly evolved capacity that humans have that other animals don't. We can reflect on our own functioning. Notice, bigots or believers or racists, they never reflect. Trump says, I've never reflected on myself, I hate it. Dumb people don't think about themselves, they only look at physical things. Shape, color, oh, those are big tits. Oh, that's a brown person. Oh, I'm mad. Right? Shapes and colors, physical appearance, they only do adjectives. They don't do this. They're not using the reason that they're here. They're not using their highest capacity to reflect systematically the dialectic on understanding. You revert back onto the model, but you've improved. Now you do another one, and you do another one, and you do another one. That's the spiritual method. That's the learning method. That's also our evolutionary method, and it's a lot of fun. And it's a win-win-win.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win. We always be winning. And notice, we're doing it anyway. Even believers, even the racists or ignorance or whatever, they're also doing it. That's their life, but they're in a stagnant loop. Everything you do, when you haven't reflected on the early beliefs about self and reality from childhood, you spend your life, you go, well, this is me. I want to talk to that beautiful girl. But you know what you'll do? You need to be your most beautiful self to attract her. But what's your idea of beauty? You don't know. It's a belief from your parents, from upbringing. So I believe I'm pretty ugly because my parents shut me down when I was feeling good or whatever. And so now you want to be your highest, most beautiful, your bestest self. So you copy your model. So you're shy and nervous. And the girl's like, ew, yuck. Girl's like, ooh, yuck. And then you walk away sad. Blocked from your goal. Blocked from being able to participate in beauty. And you walk away and you said, I knew it all along. I guess I was right all along. I guess I was right. I do suck. You started by being attracted to your girlfriend's physical appearance in chat. You didn't use your mind at first. But here's the thing. Both of you are here for the same reason. We all have understanding. We are all perfected. So in a truly good relationship, instead of reflecting on your false images of beliefs, you can both engage in the dialectic. You can both go through the process of perfecting your model and removing your false model. The false model is a dialectic as well that you play out in time. So you have an idea of your goal. By the way, why did you choose that goal? You must have thought it was beautiful or good or excellent. So already your life is limited by your choice of goals based on your unsuspected model of beauty. Again, from appearances from childhood, when our parents appeared the most beautiful, which is usually when we were doing something good and they wanted to say, not in this house. So already your choice of goals is based on your model of beauty. But then you need to be your most beautiful self to attract the girl. So that's based on your model of beauty. And then when you relate to her, you have to have some way of relating to people. The most beautiful way. Oh, how did your parents relate to each other? How did your parents relate to you? So there you are, repeating the model. Notice, you're repeating the model again and again, like the dialectic, except it never goes anywhere. You're not learning anything new. A racist is a racist their whole life. A Jew is a Jew from childhood. A Christian is a Christian from childhood. A Mormon is a Mormon from childhood. They can't learn. They can't improve because they never reflect on their model, because they're being manipulated to be a member of the family clan based on belief. Yes, philosophy solves all problems. In chat. Because we can see that our choice of goal is based on our false belief of reality or beauty or justice. The way that we act ourselves, so our model of ourself is based on our false model. So the whole drama, you don't even have to do anything. You can avoid yourself the conflict, because straight away you've got an image of yourself. Everything that follows will be based on that image of yourself. It's the first cause of all of your problems. So if you know that image of yourself, it stars in your daydreams, it stars in your night dreams, it stars in your fantasies. You don't even have to do anything. It's all built in. It's all inherent into your idea of yourself. Our life is giving us the clues about that false image of the self that we've been carrying, our mask. So you try and be your greatest self and you have that conflict and you end, I guess I was right all along. I guess I'm a small bean. I guess I'll be whatever. In other words, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy based on a false model of reality and self. That's belief. And if you're a human being, you get that. Meaning all human beings are caused by the same thing. Our activity based on a false model, that's the cognitive function called belief, which is a model of the whole that we make up without words, so we don't know we're carrying it. We just think, obviously it's true. You might have heard racists or right-wingers say, it's just common sense. What they mean is they've never thought about the understanding or the truth of it. It's just what they've always known. I've always been a Jew. I've always been a Muslim. I've always been a Catholic. I've always been a Mormon. I've always been a racist. I've always been a sexist. It's just common sense, bro. Just believe me, bro. That's why the pages of human history are soaked in blood. People are blindly loyal to their false image of self and reality, and it always involves being in opposition to truth. So human beings are against their own benefit. We fight against understanding. We fight against true benefit. We fight, the rich people fight against universal healthcare, universal wealth equality. My clan is special. We are the Jews. We are the chosen ones. We get to kill the Palestinians. We are the Smiths. We are the rich people. We get to have slaves. We get to have all the money. My parents will be mad if you're awake. Okay. Reflection is key. Reflection is key. The two elements, reflection, as you've said. Now here's a fancy word. Ousia. Ousia is the capacity our mind has to reflect on itself. Not reflecting on shapes and colors, but itself. Not the adjectives, the nouns. And by the way, how do you do that reflection? Through this structure called the dialectic. That's the use of language, structured questions, open curiosity, conversations with your friends can follow us. That's the logos. Language, reason, reflection. Language is... So the activity of mind or thinking is the logos. Its use is self-reflection. That's ousia. Logos and ousia. They're two new words that you need to have, because if you don't have the word, you can't use them properly. If you don't know what a skateboard is, it's going to be hard doing a nollie kickflip. You need the word. And it's a Greek word because we don't have them in English. That's okay. You also can order a croissant, even though it's a French word, it's now part of English. Ousia and logos, reflection and language. That's the key. And all we've done is surfaced our unsuspected false model of self and reality. That's the root cause of all problems, individually and collectively. Just venerated, or it's not just my opinions, bro. It's God's opinions, the thousands of religions who have killed other people for that bullshit. It's not just my opinions, bro, says the right-wing fascist, that we should kill all immigrants. It's good for the country. It's the law, bro. Horseshit. The thing is, with understanding, it's universal. It applies to everyone. Everyone can experience true beauty. See your question, do you believe in God? No. Belief is for babies. We're understanding God. If the model of understanding that we are reflecting on has scope over the physical world, in other words, it's a noun, it exists, then it has to exist as a noun eternally, eternal existence. It's the model and cause of our physical world, eternal existence, cause of the physical world. It's God, the God that creates the physical world, your own mind. So notice, belief can just give you an image. God hates the Jews, or God hates the non-Christians, or God hates women. All that shit. Fuck off. To that we say,
She's like a cold-hearted cunt. Just shut the fuck up forever. Just shut the fuck up. Just forever.
Just forever shut the fuck up. Because beliefs about God are used to take your own personal bullshit beliefs and make them universal, so you can justify killing or enslaving other people. That's religion. Belief is for babies. Belief is the cause of all human problems. What we are doing is understanding God. If there is the divine, let's say the divine, understanding the realm of being, that which is eternal and the cause of all thinking and reality. But notice, we're not just understanding it, we are reflecting on it systematically with questions in an open-minded. See, believers aren't open-minded. They're certain. I know the truth because my daddy said so. We are open, curious, reflecting, meditation. So, the activity of understanding is the good activity, our excellence, but also the logos. It also prepares us to directly experience it, ousia. We don't just understand the nature of God or the divine. We experience it. We join with it. Your mind can turn around, reflection, ousia, and know itself all at once. So to use these building blocks of understanding to understand what we just said, we could say our activity of understanding is our excellence used in parts to distinguish differences in time, whereas that's understanding, whereas knowing with a capital K is to experience all of those nouns or substantives, all of this as a whole, as a sameness. Mind becomes like mind. You are at rest. You've reached your goal of knowing the nature of reality or the divine or God. You are completely unlimited. You are everything, so there's nothing outside of you. It's infinity. You're free. And it's also eternal in the realm of being, so out of time. So we can use these pairs or Lego pieces of understanding to understand what understanding is. We use the model of the whole to function in a good, caring, or providential way to the parts. Whereas the model or knowingness is the whole, is the same, is the at rest, is the unlimited, is out of time, is eternity. The whole of all parts. So the way to explain what it's like to separate your soul from the body and experience mind, or the model, is the greatest positives of all of these words. The greatest, notice we're using the term greater from our triad, lesser, greater, and ultimate. The greatest benefit, the greatest goodness, the greatest beauty, and the greatest whole of the greatest parts, the greatest sameness of the greatest difference, the greatest likeness of the greatest, so we can understand the highest spiritual experience or the highest experience man can have. which is knowing. We can also understand its functioning as your state of mind is that whole, the model, using the model, but you're functioning in time, in the physical world. So understanding takes that whole and breaks it down into parts. So it's the beneficial use of the whole in the parts. That's understanding. Wisdom is both. To have the model and have the activity, that's wisdom. Ignorance is belief. You are limited. I am a Mormon. I can't watch Harry Potter. I can only marry Mormon people. You have to accept limits. I have to believe in Jesus. I can't change. I have to be a Mormon. I have to kill the non-Mormons. I have to kill the non-whatever. I can't learn for myself. I can't be myself. You have to accept limits. You have to be a part. We are the chosen people. We are the Jews. We kill the Palestinians. So you're not just a part. You are in opposition, in conflict with the whole. So understanding is to have the whole, the model of mind, and function caringly, beneficially, excellently, beautifully, justly with the parts. Belief is the opposite. You are a part and you act unjustly. Why? Because belief is the lesser imitation of these goodnesses. My parents seemed just when they shut me down. When they yelled at me for reading Harry Potter, my mum looked the most beautiful she'd ever looked when she instilled these limits. So belief is the lesser version of this, which causes us to be the lesser term, part, different, unlike, limited, only in time, never leaving the world of shapes and colors. In anger, in animosity, in conflict against the whole. There you can't know the mind of God. That's heresy. Burn her at the stake. There's no model of universal beauty. It's all opinions, bro, and our opinions are the right ones. So the model of belief is that. A conflict between the lesser and greater of reality. The activity or materialism is a lower function, lower than belief, which is called strict dualism. So atheists or materialists, there are only parts. We are only chemicals. We're only atoms. That's it. There is no beauty. There is no mind. There is no whole. There is no enlightenment. There is no realm of being. There is no self. That's all woo-woo and fairy talk. Because my daddy was a very practical looking, beautiful man. By the way, why do you believe it? Because my dad was so beautiful when he told me that all spirituality is garbage. Hey, just because religion is garbage, because it's belief, doesn't mean there's no whole. It's an opposition against the whole. They're liars. That's by definition. So, materialism or atheism, there is no whole, a strict line. Strict dualism. Only the lesser. Belief, to be the lesser and at war with the greater. Understanding, to be the greater, to have the whole, to have the model, to reflect on the model that allows you to function beneficially to the lesser. And of course, knowing is to have the greater whole of all of the parts all at once. Those are the 4 kinds of cognitive functions we can talk about. Materialism. So earlier in the chat, somebody asked, hey, can you define belief? We've just defined it. If we're going to define something, we have to use understanding, meaning we have to use these Lego pieces, these pairs, these ones or these threes to talk about oneness, goodness, or truth. Belief is the lesser, notice we're using these nouns, lesser appearance of these ones that cause us to be limited, always in time, always different, always apart, that acts in opposition or at war with understanding and knowledge or wisdom. Human ignorance is at war with its own benefit. That's the age of man we are moving out of. All human conflicts is a conflict of ignorance against wisdom. And somebody said, hey, I don't want to just believe what wisdom is. Can you share an understanding so I can see it myself, so I can make it my own? Easy. Remember, we have to use this model of understanding all of the nouns or substantives. It's the greater idea of justice, or noun of justice, noun of beauty, noun of goodness, that gives our greater benefit. It's our excellence. So the greater application of these ones to know the whole, or the greater whole, the greatest whole of all parts. So the experience of mind knowing itself as being is the whole of all parts, or eternity, or a dimension of God, being. It's the greater same of all of the differences. It's all of evolution all at once. It's completely unlimited, infinite, but completely self-contained. It's a oneness. So we have understood. So it's enlightenment, or the experience of knowingness. Oh, and by the way, wisdom is having that and having its functioning as well. The model is that, and its activity is to use that whole in the parts, in time, to help people with their limits or problems. So wisdom or enlightenment isn't weird or scary or woo-woo or anything like secret or special or esoteric. It's just using these building blocks of understanding to incorporate all that's possible. The lesser version of these, when you either are disconnected, materialism, there's just parts, there is no mind, or the lesser imitation of these, where you are a part, you are a belief about yourself and reality, and you're at war. So all human conflict and suffering is nothing other than that. So we understand the nature of materialism, or belief, and belief. We can also understand wisdom, both of which are ignorance. The wisdom, of course, is the greater. Have the whole, which is the greater, to understand the whole of all parts all at once, out of time, but the model for everything in time. And understanding, of course, is to have your state of mind referring to that whole while you function in the physical world in time towards the parts. So we've understood, just using these building blocks of understanding, these Lego pieces, the nature of wisdom, which is knowledge and understanding, and the nature of ignorance, belief, and materialism. We also have been engaging in that very thing to perfect our understanding. This perfects our understanding. And it's also a kind of meditation, so it's also preparing us to experience the whole knowledge. It's a win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win. Therefore, we can understand the nature of man. We are born into a family where we see through our physical appearances, that's the lesser. Or all of those duads, whole and part, same and different, are also the building blocks for everything that exists. So for there to be two things, for there to be existence, everything can't be the same, otherwise there would be no creation. So, for there to be existence, there has to be a principle of everything being one, and then it unfolding into a manyness. So all of those duads, one and many, have to exist like this. Why? Because there's this overlap where you can have a many coming into a oneness or a wholeness, but there has to be something that makes many different from one, otherwise there'd be two overlapping circles. There have to be something where there's one that's not touched by the many, but this also applies for whole and part, same and difference. Not only does this apply to cognitive functions or thinking, it applies to reality. So there's a dimension of reality we call the physical world, where we only see parts, we only see difference. There's the mind, which overlaps one and many, whole and part, which allows us to do what we're doing, take the adjectives and reflect on what caused them, because you never see beauty as a physical thing. Your mind recognizes it. So using your mind to know the model So we have the model. The model. And we have its activity. Understanding is the activity of mind to revert on its model. Activity. And those things together are wisdom. That's wisdom. It's wisdom. But human problems are caused by its lesser. So we can say, hang on a second, we could use lesser and greater here. That's the greater. Here is the lesser. The part of the whole that's not. The part of the parts that are not whole. The many that's not one. From that, the appearance of how our parents and our preachers looked, we get a false model called belief. And our human life becomes stuck in problems because we are in opposition to the whole. Materialism. There is no whole. I'm an atheist. I'm a reductionist. I'm a scientist. That's it. That's ignorance. So a philosopher like Socrates comes along and says, hey, by the way, you know how you guys are all suffering and we live in an unjust world? That's just because you are fiercely loyal to your beliefs from childhood and you are in opposition to understanding and knowing. So this is the model and activity is both. Oops. So by the way, you can solve your ignorance or problems by identifying your false model and activity to make a happy person, to make a happy relationship, to make a happy world, the utopia. Model and activity, belief and materialism, or strict dualism is better because it's an strict dualism. There is no mind, there's just the physical. So you can say you can't know the mind because you're just, our friend in chat's a model.
I'm too pure.
Too pure. There are lots of ways you can reject the whole. We are just physical things. There is no beauty. We're just chemicals. We're just rocks in space. We're just space dust. Or we're just humans and we could never know the mind of God. Lots of ways of doing it, but it's always in opposition. And then Socrates comes along and says, by the way, the model is knowing, or nous, if you fancy, the Greek word for it. And the activity is understanding with a capital. Dianoia. Dianoia is the Greek word for understanding. Understanding this, not understanding how many beans there are in China, not understanding anything physical. So I could say, by the way, the purpose of life, the reason you're here, is to experience this model of being, this dimension of being, which is experienced as a oneness, being in the world of becoming. Because you have been carrying in your soul a false model about mind and reality and self and reality. So being, another word for being is mind or reality. Mind or reality. You have a false belief about reality and yourself. That's going to be the cause of your problems. That's the meaning of life. You will get a false model from your physical appearances. In childhood, because you're stuck in your family, you're stuck in your house, you're stuck with your parents, and your parents pretend to be a knower. It's all bullshit. The same bullshit that their parents played on them and their parents played on them. So we say to that,
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
so disgusted.
Bitch.
Bitch.
She's like a cold-hearted cunt.
Well,
Whore.
a bit harsh.
Oh my fuck.
Yeah, oh my fuck.
I think it's so awesome.
But it's not awesome.
Okay, go ahead, man.
Let's go ahead. Our physical appearances, because we're stuck there, from which we derive a false model called belief and a false activity, which is our own antagonism or conflict against the whole and our own goodness. That's human ignorance. Socrates comes along and says, oh, you know what? The whole reason you were able to do that, you don't see the model of self and reality. Your mind put it together because you're taking the blame for your parents' bullshit. So we say to that,
You moron. You absolute
Moron.
fucking buffoon. You goddamn idiot.
goddamn idiot, but that's okay. You're supposed to have your problem. Otherwise, your soul wouldn't be reincarnated to get that false image of yourself and reality. You're carrying it with you. You have to address it. And you will have problems and suffering in your life until you do. That's the meaning of life. And you won't be able to solve it unless you actually figure out what's the true model. That's understanding. That's self-reflection and language, ousia and logos. You could say ousia is the model and logos is the activity. The activity of language to turn about upon itself and know the model all at once. By the way, when you have both, that's called wisdom. Philosophy is the love of that because that's where beauty is. Philos, you fall in love with it. Philos means love. Sophia means wisdom. True philosophy is nothing other than the activity of understanding to revert upon the models or everything you've seen as adjectives to experience it as substantives, as nouns. As a result of that, you learn the art of dialectic. So wisdom gives you the art of dialectic. How to think and reason well about anything. Art of dialectic. So that's the meaning of life. That's the activity, because whatever you take with you, it has to be a kind of learning or nurturing into your soul. You can't take your Bugattis, you can't take your Instagram likes, you can't take your bank account. But whatever you learn and you ingrain into your soul has to be the meaning of life. Therefore, life, the purpose, can only be a learning and nurture. And that can only be about two things: yourself and reality, or mind. Therefore, the meaning of life or the purpose for everyone is to master the art of dialectic, which is an art because it's a skill we have to learn, and it's an art that benefits. And as we practice it, we nurture into our soul. What is it? The use of understanding and knowing to know the nature of self and reality. But hang on a second, we're using two words, self and reality. We've got this section here, the model of mind or mind itself or being, that's reality. But we're missing one part of this Venn diagram. The section of these duads that doesn't touch the lesser, the greater that's not touched by the lesser, the whole that's not touched by parts. So in other words, we've got the lesser, we've got the greater, got one more term. What's our triad? The ultimate. The ultimate dimension of reality is this, the whole that's not touched by parts, the same that's not touched by difference. So we've got two different spiritual experiences. We've got this model, which is the penultimate spiritual experience. So penultimate, which means second last. Spiritual, because it's spiritual, it's mind knowing itself as eternity. So that's one idea of God. Spiritual experience. But that must mean there has to be a model here, which is therefore the ultimate. Ultimate spiritual experience. So these are the two classes of spiritual experiences you can have. Some might say, oh, that sounds like the everything all at once. Sounds like the Taoists. And this, if this is a whole without parts, then it's without qualities. So if mind is a oneness of all qualities, then its necessary cause is, if oneness means one, which is the greater, connected with the many, or the whole of parts, then we've got this section of one that's not many, a pure one. We need a pure one for there to be a oneness. We need a pure good for there to be goodness. We need true itself for there to be truth. So our question is, now that we've recognized that all human conflict has been a conflict between our upbringing, where we get ignorance, belief, and dualism, a disconnection. It's a hard word to nail down. And our excellence or benefit, which is wisdom, which is using understanding to move from adjectives to substantives, to nail down our skill of understanding and to experience the model of knowing. The two together is wisdom. The art we end up with is the dialectic. That's the only thing we can learn and take with us. That's the learning and nurture about self and reality. That's the dialectic. So the meaning of life has been to master the art of dialectic, which can be then used to look down and purify or remove our problems. That activity to purify the false model and activity, or as we've been doing today, perfect the greater activity. So that's our two things, perfection and purification. The nature of human problems, ignorance, and the nature of human excellence, wisdom. But now we have a final question. Hang on a second. What's the ultimate? What's the model and activity, not of reality, but of self? Or if mind is the truth of reality, what's ultimate reality? If the middle section is the greater, what's the ultimate? What's the ultimate goodness? What's the ultimate one? What's the ultimate true? What's the ultimate self? That's the new age of man. To use our activity to reflect on self. The section of self that is not other. So how can you see everything, ultimate reality, as just one, as just self, as just good? That's the goal. So a higher idea of God than the creator God, than any religious idea of God, because all religious ideas has God's doing stuff, qualities, making shit, judging people. That's a manyness. Well, but he's eternity. Yeah, well then he's in the middle term. Now, obviously, religion, of course, is bullshit. It's an imitation of its belief. It's not actual. But what we are seeing here is the purpose of reality is to use your understanding, your evolved Usia and Logos capacity, to move from adjectives, shapes, and colors to their nouns, which is in mind, preparing you to experience everything all at once, or knowing the eternity or the immortality of your own soul or mind. Overcoming your fear of death and recognizing yourself as eternity. That's wisdom. That's also the model of understanding, so you're also perfecting your activity in time as well. That's the dialectic. The dialectic is the meditation and the activity. The meaning of life, therefore, to master the dialectic. But in the same way that we perfect our excellence and solve human problems by going from adjectives to nouns, descriptors to substantives, so too can we recognize that the thing that made all of these nouns is we go from a beautiful thing to the beautiful, a just society to the idea of justice, a part to the idea of parts. Beauty itself, justice itself, wholeness itself. So we need two things. If your language doesn't have the, you can't get out of your problems. You'll be stuck in belief, ignorance, suffering, and injustice. You need the word the. If your language doesn't have it, put it the fuck in. Do it now. The same way we're putting in logos and ousia. Who cares? I've also put in the word croissant. I'm still doing okay.
I'm going to get you. I'm going to find you. And I'm going to get you.
Well, R.M. Brown might get me for using the word croissant, but no one else, because...
You just attacked my person. You just harmed my body.
Sorry about that. But, okay. Some people will get butthurt by using the word croissant, but not really. That's dumb.
They're secretly turned on by it.
They're secretly turned on by it. So bring in the word the. But also we can recognize the thing that made these things thus is beauty itself, or the Greek say self-beauty, self-justice. So even for these nouns, they all have the same goddamn adjective, self. So in the same way we go from ignorance to wisdom by going from adjectives to nouns, so too, if we want to go from wisdom to ultimate being, ultimate self, to know the self, the ultimate goal and purpose of reality in life, we also have to go from these as self being used as an adjective to self as a noun. What, therefore, is the self? The self, not a self-beauty or a experience of self as reality, a experience of self as justice or the whole. So it's always the same. The use of understanding through the practice, skill, or art of dialectic to revert on the model by going from adjectives to substantives to nouns, adjectives to nouns, going from a's to thus. Philosophy is starting with lots and lots of a's, a beautiful, a just thing, to the beautiful, the justice, the whole, the part. But our movement now, the new age of man, the way of being that's even greater than wisdom, is therefore to go from those nouns of wisdom and those nouns of the model of wisdom to from self, beautiful, self-justice to self itself. What is the ultimate? What is the self? And because we have this Venn diagram, we can have, remember, it's a meditation, it's a contemplation, it's a question and wondering. With logos, it's an ousia, that's meditation, self-reflection. With logos, you need both. That's why it's the ultimate spiritual tradition. All other spiritual traditions might have some sort of meditation or self-reflection, but they lack the logos. That's why this is the complete one. The model, the paradigm. By definition, not because it was my parents' is one, or my imam or minister's one. The opposite, in fact. Everyone will be against this. Because that's the activity of belief, to be against wisdom and against the self, against the paradigm. Only teams, caveman shit, barbarian shit. That's the nature of human ignorance, in opposition to the whole of the paradigm. Who are you to say there's one truth? Blasphemy! We all are entitled to our own opinions. You're all entitled to cancer. What does that mean? You can be ignorant and bad and harmful. Doesn't mean you should. When you go to the mechanic and you say, he goes, oh yeah, your spark plug needs to go above the carburetor. Who are you to say there's one way of putting the spark plug? Aren't we all entitled to our opinions? He'll look at you like you're an idiot and he'll say...
Like literally, suck my dick, dude.
He'll say, literally, dude, do that. To my dick, dude. If you have a different opinion, your car's not going to work. Why do you think you're paying me as a mechanic? But my uncle was a carburetor above the piston believer. And we're come from a long line of carburetor above piston believers. In fact, that's what we are. I'm a carburetorist. And we hate pistonists. He'll look at you and he'll say...
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
I'll say he's so disgusted, because that's stupid. Of course, if there's understanding, it's universal. Obviously, but then you're excluding me. No, no one is, belief excludes. You have to be born a Jew, or you have to accept Jesus to be a Mormon, or whatever the fuck. Understandings for everyone who has mind. It's literally the meaning of life for everyone. By definition, not based on opinion or belief, the opposite. To remove belief through the perfection of understanding by reverting on the model, which is going from us, beautiful, to the, from adjectives to nouns. And the ultimate way of being is to go one step further, self as an adjective to self as a noun. And because we have this Venn diagram, because we have that model, we're not just using our understanding, we're using the model too. So this model allows us to reflect. Again, ousia, question, the paradigm of meditation with logos, with understanding. So our job is to wonder about the self. What is the self? How can it be the cause of everything? How can it be even the cause of the creator God or mind? How can it be the ultimate? Why is it the most first thing that I recognize? Before I distinguish a whole and part of stuffies, I first distinguish it's other than myself. So it's the highest term, but it's also the most primary. It's the most transcendent, but it's the most immediate. That's something to wonder about. But we're not just wondering, we also have logos. Love and logos, ousia and logos. So now we have this model that we've got from understanding. By looking at the nouns, we can say, hang on a second, all of the duads are this Venn diagram, whole and part, same and different. Got a long list. So along with our wondering about the ultimate purpose, or the ultimate way of being, to reflect on ourselves as God, the God, not a God down here, but the God, we can use understanding. Whatever this the God or the self is some sort of whole, but different from every other whole, because every other whole has been some sort of whole of all parts. Or in belief, a fake imitation of the whole based on imitation and belief and ignorance. But this is a unique kind of whole that we are looking for, but not looking, because, seeking. We are looking for it in a sense, but not with your eyes. It's a unique kind of whole that's not touched by parts. So we can also understand along with it, wonder. It's going to be a unique kind of sameness that isn't touched by anything different. Everything else that we've been seen as the same, it's the same because there's no difference within it. Or it's some sort of eternal or immortal, different from everything else, because everything else that was eternal was out of time, but also incorporates all of time, eternity. So a unique kind of out of time that doesn't even touch time, but is somehow the cause of all time. It's somehow reflected into mind that then creates the physical world. So it's the cause of being and becoming, mind and the physical. But we can use the other terms because we have this list. We can say, well, it must therefore be ultimate. If the lesser is physical appearance and belief, the greater is wisdom, knowing. Ultimate use of goodness. So what would be the ultimate goodness? Good self, good itself. What would be the ultimate kind of oneness? A pure one. What would be the ultimate truth? It wouldn't be truth, it would be true. Be the principle of true. What would be the ultimate kind of whole? A unique whole that's the cause of whole of all parts, but different from every other whole because it's not touched by parts, transcending parts. That's the ultimate way of being. That's our ultimate purpose. That's the new category of man, the new way of being that dooms all other ways of being, because all other ways of being would be lesser, would be in this conflict between wisdom and ignorance. But by the way, having that model, having that ultimate, would allow us, just as how Having an understanding allows us to do philosophical midwifery, use the dialectic to purify our problems by uncovering our false model and activity, so you can look down and help. So too can this ultimate activity look down and help people with their beliefs or ignorance, but also look down and help people going through the stages of wisdom or enlightenment. It's a win-win. Therefore, even Socrates as a philosopher and Jesus as a believer, even the wise and ignorant, would be followers of this new class of man, the ultimate class of man, which is self turning about and reflecting on himself, ousia, with understanding, logos, as the self. So man no longer reflecting on himself as human, but as the God. Or as Socrates talked about this, is the person we're reading about. His teacher was Parmenides, and Parmenides' teacher was Xenophanes, and Xenophanes, is the earliest we have of philosophy. He said, by the way, it's the whole self that's one, that is seeing, hearing, and thinking right now. So it's an ancient tradition that we have rediscovering and bringing into the light, because whatever is this whole that's not parts, it's self and it's God. The, not a, the God, the self, the whole. Not a whole of parts, the whole without parts. And it's seeing, hearing, and thinking right now. It's you. So the evolution of man reaches its next point when it moves from reflecting on himself as man in that battle between wisdom and ignorance to reflecting on himself as God, whose functioning can still happen in the realm of man. So it's both. So knowing yourself as the God, knowing the mind that is a reflection of self, and also functioning in time to help people perfect their wisdom, purify their ignorance, and awaken to this new way of being, knowing themselves as the God. So that's where we are in history, that's where we are in the book, and that's where we are right now, reflecting on ourselves as the God. But you can't do any of this without the word the. You can't go from adjectives to nouns without the word the. You can't go from ignorance and suffering to wisdom and excellence without the word the. And you can't go from wisdom and excellence to the ultimate, to know the self, without the word the. Therefore, can we conclude all of human conflict and all human issues comes down to one word, the word the. If you're not using the word the, you're stuck in appearances and beliefs. If you don't have the word the in your language, you can't go from ignorance to wisdom, and you can't learn understanding to solve human problems and perfect your excellence. And if you don't have the word the, you can't go from the model of knowing, the nouns, from self-knowing, self-whole, self-part, self-beauty, beauty itself, justice itself. You can't go from self as an adjective, or recognizing that the model of mind is the adjective of self, the reflection of self, the shadow of self. You can't go from that wisdom to the self. You can't know yourself, which is the reason we're here, the purpose or the meaning of life. To master the art of the dialectic and to purify ignorance, perfect wisdom, and go on to the self. That's the meaning of life. And it all comes down to one word, the. If you have the word the, you can define things. You can do definitions. So we'll do a dialectic one. You can define things. Definition, self itself, the word the, you can define. How does it function, or self to others? Demonstration. Well, if you have the word the, you can explore the mind and the self. You can go from ignorance to wisdom and wisdom to ultimate. How do you have that? Having been affected by that functioning, how do then you relate others to others? you can use that dialectic to help people engage in ousia and logos, reflection and understanding, through the dialectic. So you have the word the mind, the self, and now the dialectic. What's the conclusion? What's the result of that? You can therefore benefit everyone. Or in other words, you can be good. Remember, the dialectic ends, you take that conclusion back to the start. Therefore, the new definition of the word the is also the good. Why? It's good to be able to explore and know mind and self, to master the dialectic, and to benefit other people as well. That's the conclusion. The other back to self. You need the word the, therefore, to have the one. And now we can see, by going through this dialectic, or by experiencing life and turning around from ignorance to wisdom through reading this text, we can see the is needed for the one and also needed for the good. What brings one and good together? Self. Therefore, to know the self, to know the one, to know the good, and to function through that, you need the word the. Therefore, one of the reasons why the Hebrew people became stuck in their issues and problems, belief, religion, and acted in opposition, in conflict with the Hellenic people who liked understanding, is they didn't have the word the. They couldn't do it. So, do all, therefore, human problems come down to one word, the word the? And we have to add it? Because if you don't have it, you can't see it and use it. What an interesting puzzle. Wow, so that's where we are in the text. The article, as we see here, Jesus saying, the article the transforms an adjective into a substantive of noun. The power of the article makes the adjective into a substantive that has the scope over all things, and therefore it's most fundamental. It takes the one out of many, or good, and makes it the good. It has an existence. Foundational for the good. If you can't express it, so this is where we are in the book. Socrates saying, given everything we've reflected on today, we can understand why Socrates is saying this. Are you saying, Jesus, that the Hebrew language does not have this magical term, the? Good heavens! That must mean such a language will have great difficulty in comprehending our Hellenic philosophy. If you can't express it, you can't think it. This would tend to make people more concrete, or focused on the moment, or as what the kids are saying, focused on gossip or shapes and colors, rather than explore the source of all sources, what we're actually here to do. The result would focus people's interest in doing particular things, becoming more concrete in their thinking, and through this avoidance, miss out on the power of language for reflection, the power of logos for ousia. Two things that we have evolved into that we can make use of through the dialectic to fulfill our purpose. Ousia, self-reflection, and language. Cows don't have that, but we have that. And if you don't have the word the, you can't use your evolved faculties of language and reflection, logos and ousia. You're fucked.
You moron. You absolute
Goddamn buffoon. It just might account for the hostility some people experience from others when they seek to go beyond the concrete view of reality. Right? Thinkers, understanders, philosophers who are helping people, the only people who can really help people, sometimes they get hated from dingbats, from
like literally suck my dick. Disgusting. Just shut the fuck up forever. Just shut the You have the brain of a child if you think that.
From people who have the brains of a child, but now we can understand why. They just don't have the word the. So, they get concrete in their thinking, they're focused on shapes and colors and gossip, and they avoid the power of language or logos for reflection or ousia. They stay as dumb as a cow. And that might account for the hostility some people experience from others when they seek to go beyond the concrete view of reality. When you, for example, say in Emma from the Majority Report's Twitch chat,
the primary purpose of pools is not to murder. It is for enjoyment and cooling off.
Something true and beneficial, like the model of truth that she is seeking has a name, and if you can't express it, you can't think it. It's called the logos. Then the bitch-ass Twitch moderators from the Majority Report,
dude, suck my dick,
who can suck Socrates' dick.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
Which is disgusting. I'm disgusted.
Chimps. A chimp kissed a fox once, I think. I do enjoy that.
Okay. The reason is because you're challenging their concrete view of reality. So that was the cause of Beefgate 2025. I got banned for telling the truth about this model, which Emma was saying, because Emma is doing good work. I wish there was a universal model and principle that we could establish for the left, because the establishment left seemed to be rejecting it and compromising with fascists. Yes, if you can't name it, you can't express it and think it and use it. Here's the name. Ban. How fucked is that? To that we say,
fuck you. Actually, fuck you.
Actually, fuck you. But we still try and do our best anyway, in spite of human ignorance and barbarism, which is nothing other than hostility against people who seek to go against their own ignorance. Difficult, but that's the life of a philosopher, baby, until everyone wakes up to this and I become permanently unbanned from Majority Report chat. And that's my precondition for being a guest on the show, which was the solution to Beefgate. Huge drum. It broke the internet, some are saying. Went viral, maybe.
You just attacked my person. You just harmed my body.
Exactly. Emma?
You're a baby. You're a little baby.
Yes, the Twitch moderators are little babies because...
They're completely lying to you. Yeah. They're completely lying.
They're completely lying to everyone. Of the Majority Report. But of course, you could ask the question, why would they seek to become a moderator and not a creator themselves? Makes you wonder. Here we go. So, particular things concrete in their thinking and avoid using logos, even the word logos, for reflection. That might account for the hostility some people experience from others when they seek to go beyond the concrete view of reality, materialism. Their entry into our Hellenic thought would be handicapped without the study of Greek, wouldn't it? And that's where we are. We've seen that our movement from ignorance to wisdom requires the word the, and also requires some Greek words to be put into our language. The model, logos, reflection, ousia. That's just the way it is. You can't think it, you can't express it, you can't think it. It's just that simple. Thankfully, we have a kick-ass channel here and some quick kick-ass community members who hang out and support the channel, and we thank you. If you don't have the word the, you'll be stuck in particulars or A's. A beautiful person, a belief that I have from a family tribe. And anything in opposition is confusing and scary, and I will attack it to imitate my model of knowing based on appearances, to crush actual knowing, and because I think I'm a big, strong, tough guy, sadism. So human ignorance has behind it the principle of sadism, which is the false model of knowing based on beliefs, because you haven't gone from adjectives to substantives to see the model of understanding in reality, true knowingness. So you need the word the. You also need the word ousia and logos, by the way, and also the word self. But key is the word the, to move from ignorance to wisdom, to then turn around and purify ignorance of other people, should they be open to this kind of reflection, and even to perfect your wisdom to reach the ultimate state of being, to know the self. Not know the self as the whole of all parts, not know yourself as eternity and the principle of the truth of justice and beauty, but to know yourself instantly, because there are no qualities. So it's a pure ousia of that model without any parts. And it's an instant activity, what we call jiriki, or being in the zone. So normally the dialectic follows this use of, our use of understanding a conversation. We reflect on the model, even your experience, if you've had one of divine luminosity, as the model for beauty and justice, and structure your conversation around it through questions systematically, as we've reviewed again the dialectic. So, but it would be a thinking kind of a thing, a mastering of a skill into an art, the learning and nurture we're here to do. But it has a final, it has a result, it has an end. There is an end, there is a purpose, an ultimate goal, where you've made it your own. Like language, I don't even have to think about language. I did when I was learning it and nurturing into it, but now I just instantly use it without even thinking. So 2, all education in our culture has been rote, based on extrinsic motivation. Here's a grade, here's some gold stars, here's some parades, or I'll remove the punishment, you won't get a detention if you do what I say. Rote, be a parrot. Here are some physical words that you can copy the appearance of, rote. Remember it long enough to regurgitate it onto an exam and then forget it straight away. Real learning changes your state of mind. Real learning changes your state of being. Real learning purifies your ignorance based on particulars and perfects your state of being and your functioning through understanding by moving to be able to apprehend the truth of reality, which is a state of mind. Real learning is a state of mind development and improves your way of being or your functioning based on that model. But equally so, there is a learning or development of wisdom. Just because you're wise doesn't mean you're at the end. You have to make sure you've removed your false beliefs, but also there is a kind of acting of knowing the model or ousia, which isn't an experience of divine luminosity or beauty that you're coming in and out of. It's an instant, it's an always, it's forever or infinite, but it never moves into time. It's an infinite that's never limited. It's out of time that's never in time, by definition, because that's that Venn diagram. It's not a knowingness of the whole of all parts, but it's a whole without parts. So another word we can call about this kind of enlightened ultimate spiritual experience, we can use descriptors to understand it and get ready to recognize it when it happens, such as instant, or pure, or clear. Because we need these kinds of words so we can recognize it and acknowledge it when it happens. Because, as we saw in the book, if you can't express it, you can't name it, if you can't nail it down in a definition, you can't think it. So, we are wondering with curiosity and with understanding about this instant pure, clear knowingness of the model or usia, and this instant, pure, clear, appropriate activity. We talked about that earlier, sometimes called juriki, or being in the zone or being on fire, where the ideal of the samurai, you instantly act without having to think or plan, most appropriately for the moment with the full force of your being. That state of activity. So that state of activity and that's kind of model. Instant, pure, clear, which is nothing other than you reflecting on yourself as the God. Can't do it without the word the, but now that we know that, we can. So, can it be said that human conflict and problems and a lack of development, or
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
can be traced down to belief-based or family clan traditions that come from cultures that lack the word the? Can it all come down to one word with 3 letters? Holy fuck. Seems to. Thankfully, we have that word, and we have the other keywords that we've been mentioning, usia and logos and self. Meaning we can move into that ultimate state of man. Hooray for us. Hooray. That's where we are. That's what we've been reading about Socrates saying, hey, it all comes down to the word the, fire. Absolutely fire, says Isidori in chat. Holy fuck. One word, the. Everything that you see from now on, you can say, oh, I'm experiencing an A. There's a whole pizza. A beautiful chickie babe. What's the whole? What's the beautiful itself? What's the whole itself? What's the beauty itself? Hang on a second. I'm using the word self as an adjective. How do I go beyond the greatest possible model to the self? Something to wonder about. Thank you for joining me, and I will like, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch, join the Discord if you want a notification when we go live, and you can talk to other peeps about what you are learning in this game. And if you want to donate to the channel, it is greatly appreciated. There is a link below, and I will see you in the next one. See you in the next one.